Hey, let's do it ourselves, save some money. Welcome to Sikbaggers YouTube channel. I'm Steve. Today I'm going to be showing you how to change your front and rear brakes on a newer model Softail. Today we have our 2015 Heritage Softail back here on the lift, and it is in dire need of some brake pads. So thought this would be a great opportunity to get the camera over here and show you how to change the pads. One thing I want to point out real quick, you don't have to have a lift table or even a motorcycle jack to change your brakes. Now, that being said, I will say that if you are planning on wrenching on your bike at all, now and in the future, at least try to pick up a motorcycle jack. And the reason why I'm saying that is, like, if you have this bike on a jiffy stand and your rear brakes are on the right hand side, sure, that's easy to get to, it's all right there. But when you're doing the front, they're on the left hand side. So if you've got the bike on the jiffy stand and your handlebars automatically kind of kick over to the left, now you're kind of working underneath the front wheel. So if you can get the bike upright in a stable position, it's going to make this job go a lot easier. Now, before we get started on this, I quickly want to go over brake pads and the different pads that are available on the market. We run EBC brakes. They're an all-around great pad. Every bike that we've ever had or installed brake pads on, we've got the EBC brand. You can pick these up at Harley. You can pick them up on eBay, Amazon. They're kind of all over the place. They're a pretty popular brand. Now, the differences in the brake pads that you'll find on the market are the center, the semi-center, and the organic. And we'll kind of just briefly go over those real quick. So before you actually learn how to put them on your motorcycle, you're going to need to know which ones to actually purchase. Now, the center pads refer to the way that these are processed. This is an all metal buck. They use a ton of heat and pressure to press these together. What's good about these is they have an extremely high friction, a strong bite. They last longer, and as they're wearing down, they don't fade in pressure. It maintains that same grippiness throughout the life of the pad. But like I said, on the downfall, they're a little bit more expensive than the semi-centered or the organic pads. We're going to throw up an organic pad here so you can see what it looks like. Now, this is on the flip side of the center pads. They're a little bit more expensive, they're stronger, probably the best option for a motorcycle. And we're going to come down here to the cheaper organic pads, and you can see in this picture, that's a mixture of rubber, glass, and aramid fibers, and just a touch of metallic fibers in there. So what's good about the organic pads though is they're really quiet. They're super quiet pads. They're super easy on your rotors, but the downfall of that kind of comes with the price. They don't last as long. You're going to see a lot of brake dust, a lot of powder, a lot of buildup on your wheels because of these cheaper pads. They just wear out faster. So if we go to the semi-center pad, that's your hybrid, that's your middle ground pad that has 20 to 40% more metallic compounds than your organic, that little bit of sprinkle of metal that you saw in the organic pads. So 20 to 40% increase in the metallic to improve the durability and longevity of the pad. But what I found with the semi-center pad, running them on the bikes, because I thought that was a great pad to run, but with the semi-center pads, I still got a lot of brake dust. Now, the brake dust may not be a big deal to a lot of people, but if you've got chrome wheels, spoke wheels like these that are on this bike, they're a real pain to clean. So try to get the pads that don't create a ton of brake dust. So that one's, like I said, that one's in the middle ground. That's going to be your middle price. They're not organic, but they're not centered either. So we just tend to stick with what we know works best, and that's these centered pads. So now that you know what kind of brake pads you're going to be shopping for, you get those ordered, you get them in, you make sure to have the tools that you need that I'm going to show you today. We're going to get the camera to the other side of the bike, and we're going to start on the rear. So right here on the rear caliper, you basically have 3 bolts. You've got a slider pin up here. This pin actually holds the brake pads in, and then you have this bolt here and this bolt here. Now, we're going to remove this bolt. Set that there. I'm going to loosen this bolt, but before we actually remove this bolt, we're going to tilt this forward. We slide that forward so we can actually gain access to that bolt. It's easier to break that bolt loose when it's actually on the bike. If you try to hold this out here and break that loose, it's kind of a pain. So we just slide it forward. We're going to get our 12-point socket on there. We're going to get that loose. Back down here. Now, a lot of people won't remove this bottom bolt. They'll just tilt these over and slide them off. But the service manual does tell us to go ahead and remove the bolts. We're going to do this strictly by the service manual. Now, before I get this bolt pulled, you can see this extra wire here. This is your brake line, your fluid line, and you have this extra wire, and that goes to the ABS sensor that's back here. But it's zip tied to that, so we're just going to cut that zip tie and get that out of the way. And then if you scooch on down just a little bit, you've got another little clip that just comes off. Go ahead and take that off. So that's separated like that. So we can pull the caliper and we're not jerking on the ABS sensor. Moving the ABS wire out of the way, we can pull this up and off. We're gonna bring this out. You can see now that our bottom ones just free float in there like that, and we still have that pin we've already loosened. So we're going to remove this 12-point socket pin. And it's very important, I keep saying 12-point sockets, because this screw right here has 12 little edges on it. Get this up in camera so you can see it and it'll focus, see the inside of that socket. If you use just a regular socket on that, you're going to take the chance of damaging that bolt. We can go ahead and pull this out. And now our brake pads are off. Now once I get the caliper out of the way, I'll just use a little bit of degreaser on a brush and just really clean this area up. If you have a lot of brake dust and gunk and crap in there, this is a great time to just get this cleaned up. The reason why I'm telling you this is because there's a couple of things that we need to pay attention to here that we need to inspect before we put our pads back on. This stuff gets overlooked all the time. We also have an anti-rattle spring. This anti-rattle spring actually goes down in the bottom of the caliper here. If you look on the back of this anti-rattle spring, you've got a fairly wide clip and a thin clip. If you look inside the caliper, you've got a wide hole and a thin hole. So you really can't mess this up on how this goes in. So we want to clean this up, we want to inspect this, make sure it doesn't have any crazy wear on it. Same thing with the torque clip down here in the bottom. That's why we cleaned up all the brake dust off of it. So this is the torque clip. We want to inspect this too. The bottom of the brake pads actually hook into this. So we want to make sure there's not bent, rocks not been in there and got all this all jacked up. So clean this up real good and actually inspect that clip as well. So what we have to do now is compress our pistons, because we had thin pads on here and the pistons are actually poked out. We go to put the new pads in there, they'll fit, that's fine, but when you go to put that on there, the distance between the pads is not going to fit on the rotor. So we need to compress these. Now there's a ton of fancy tools on Amazon. I actually linked the one down in the description. If you want to grab one, you slide it in here and crank it and it pushes it down. So we do it the old school way with a C-clamp and just anything that's thin and metal that you can actually get down in there and push on both calipers at the same time. Speed square, check. So one other thing you want to check real quick too when you take your pads off, check the pads. Make sure there's no grooves or marks inside that. Get up here and check your rotor. Run your fingers across the rotor all the way around, front and back, because it grabs both sides. And make sure that you don't have any crazy grooves or anything where something's been caught in there or the brake pad's worn bad or too far down. You wear them too far down, these little rivets on the backside actually get exposed. And when you hit your brakes, you're just cramming those rivets right into the rotor. Throw our little oil pan up here, a little tub or something underneath the rear master cylinder. We're going to come up here with a screwdriver and we're going to loosen this. You're going to loosen the cap on top of the rear master cylinder cover. You don't have to take it off, you just have to loosen it. When we apply pressure to the caliper to get the pistons to go back in, you may lose a little bit of fluid. It's fine if you want to just throw a rag or something like that down on the table as well. We're going to take our high-speed brake caliper tool. We're going to put the metal across both pistons. We're just going to squeeze slowly until we get these pistons pushed back in. So we have just a tad bit of brake fluid coming out up there. That's fine. We're going to tighten this back down. Now what we want to do is we want to get that brake fluid off there. We don't want to leave that brake fluid dripping down on that. That brake fluid will eat this black stuff off of these master cylinders. And don't just wipe it. Use some kind of degreaser. You leave that on there, and like I said, over time, you're going to start seeing this black stuff bubble. So you want to make sure that you get all the way around and get that brake fluid off. So one other quick note is if you have this junk plastic master cylinder cover that Harley so graciously provided us with, if you over tighten this, you will actually crack the master cylinder cover, which is exactly what my dumb did. I over tightened this a little bit too much and I heard a little tick and I thought, ooh man, yep, sure enough, cracked the front of it right there. Whoops, now I gotta buy a new master cylinder cover. So might as well get a chrome one. Sorry, honey. So just make sure that you pay attention to that plastic master cylinder cover up there, unless you just need an excuse to buy a chrome one. So now that our pistons are pushed in, we're gonna put our anti-rattle clip back in. Like I said before, big clip, little clip. Can't really mess this up. We're gonna slide this in. We're gonna hook the big side. And this just keeps your brake pads from rattling around when you're not applying your brakes. Get that back one in, just kind of push it forward. like that until it clips in. We're going to take our new brake pads, sandwich them together. You can see the pinholes here. They won't go the other way. You can't really mess this up. We're going to set these in. You're going to feel that springiness of that anti-rattle clip in there. You're going to take that 12-point bolt, remember? We're going to slide it through here. Get it lined up. Like I said, you'll feel that pressure on that anti-rattle spring. It's got a little pressure on it right now. We're just going to tighten this bolt by hand. So when you put your brake pads in, you have to separate them all the way. If you look down in that spring clip, it has a middle, it has an outer edge on both outer edges. That brake pad has to set up on that, just like that. You can't slide it onto your rotor with it like that. It'll go, but it won't fully go onto the bike. It has to be up here, so the caliper has to be to the outer edge and outer edge. It's very important that you do that. With that spring clip in there, they are kind of pushing out on it, so you may have to reach back in there. You see how that clicked and fell right down into place. But this is a super important part right here. Remember the torque clip I told you to inspect in the bottom? The bottom of the brake pads have that little tab that hangs down. That has to go into the torque clip. So you saw when I pushed it forward and down, it fell into place. That keeps the pads from moving when you hit the brakes. So now everything's lined up. We're going to put our bottom slider bolt in. Make sure that your ABS cable's out of the way if you have ABS. We're just going to hand start that caliper bolt like that. We want to make sure that this bolt up here is tight. We're going to torque this. So now that we have this torqued down, we have our slider bolt in the bottom, we can start working the brake pad forward, making sure that the bottom of our brake pad goes into the torque clip. From there, we're going to take our rear bolt. You want to double check if you have your ABS wire that this is not pinched anywhere. This moves freely. We'll snug it down. Now from here, it's very important to come up here and pump your brakes before you ride the bike. You're not gonna have any rear brakes. So we're gonna pump the brakes. See how far that went down? We're just gonna keep pumping until that brake gets tight. It's because we spread those pistons completely open to put our new brake pads in. So there's a lot of slop in there. Pumping the brakes will take all that slop out, put the pads right back onto your caliper where they need to be. So that's pretty much it on changing the rear brakes. What we want to do now is get our lines and our cables back in place. This Softail actually has a metal clip here that slides into. We have our little plastic clips that keep our ABS sensor. It's really important to take the time to put these back on because these can get over and get into your exhaust and you're gonna have a bad day. Also, the zip tie that we cut off, we're going to replace that. And that's pretty much it. Your rear brakes are done. Now we're gonna move to the front. Now moving on to the front calipers. Very easy, a little bit different than the rear. Now this video is on a Heritage, so just remember, your front calipers may be a little bit different. Like on the Deluxes, they have a center bolt here that holds the pads on. If you have the one, like mine, where it has two bolts like this, I'll show you the brake pad real quick. These are the bolts right here that hold the brake pads in. Some of them will be square like this and have one big hole in the middle. So depending on which one you have, you'll have to do that. But on the Heritage, I'm going to show you how to change these. First thing you're going to do is remove those two pins that hold those pads in before you do anything else. So we're going to get in here, we're going to get these out. So the bolt's loose, but can't really get a hold of it. You can use a pair of needle nose to grab the edge of that bolt and get it out a little bit more so you can pull that out. Now you can remove the rear spring clip on the back. Now from there, we're going to switch over to a 10mm 12-point socket. Once again, very important. These are 12-point sockets. Do not put a standard 6-sided socket on there. You're going to screw these bolts up and you're going to be at Harley, order new ones. Being very mindful of our ABS sensor here. It's really tight down here on this bottom bolt. I'm gonna get this one out. Got a hold the caliper and get the top one out. We're going to let our speed sensor just kind of hang down. Now remember, we've taken the 2 bolts out that hold the pad, so hang on to everything. You don't want everything crashing down, hitting your rim. You have to pull this out. Also be very careful of the edge of your fender. You want to pull this out and smack your fender. So we're just going to hang on to everything. We're going to gently start taking this out. Just like that. So unlike the rear calipers, we can't really get a C-clamp in there. That's where that tool that I'm going to link down in the description will come in handy. I'm going to show you how to do it without the tool, but that tool actually has 2 plates and slides down in there, because the front caliper, we have pistons on both sides. And as you can see, we really have nowhere to get a C-clamp in there to clamp those pistons down. So that tool slides in there, and then you crank it like a ratchet, and it separates, and it puts equal pressure all the way across. Now you can do that with your brake pads and a screwdriver. So we're just going to slide our brake pads back in there, just like this. And once again, up at the top, we're going to loosen our master cylinder cover. And you can take a rag and wrap it around there, so if you get any fluid that comes out, it's going to be caught in that rag. You can see that I actually loosened the cap and just wrapped a rag around it, so that way if we have any fluid that comes out, it's going to be caught by that towel. Hey, I hope you're enjoying the free video. I just wanted to take a real quick second to let you know how much I appreciate the hell out of every one of you. If you're liking what you see on the channel and you want to see more, it tremendously helps our channel if you just click that like button, hit the subscribe button, and tell your friends about us. You can also find Sikbaggers on other social media platforms like Facebook, Instagram, and even now we have a TikTok, so make sure to look us up over there. Every video that we put out is absolutely free all of the time. We don't have any secret squirrel websites where you have to go and pay us Patreon and all that stuff to see certain videos. And every time we do a video out here, it is absolutely free to you. Check us out everywhere and tell your friends about us. I'm going to let you get back to the video. Now with your pads installed, you can take a big fat screwdriver and stick it in there, and you can start forcing these back in. It's going to take a little bit of time. You're going to have to go back and forth. So now that we have those smashed back in, you can pop them out like that, or take them out. Then we're going to go back up there and we're going to tighten our rear master cylinder cap back off. We're going to put our pads in. You have to hold them from the bottom so they don't fall all the way through. If they're up against the walls. We're going to put our spring back in with the arrow pointing up. We're just going to kind of hold this all together with our fingers. And we're going to start these bolts in. It has to go under this one, over this one, under this one, and then through there. But it has to make sure that you get it through the hole in the brake pad as well. Well, this is the part that can be just a tad bit tricky. But if you take your time, you'll get it. We're going to take our socket and help guide screw everything in like that. The rear one's going to have a little bit more pressure on it because now you've got that front pressure. You want to make sure that you go through your hole, which we did there. Get everything in place. Push it all the way over just like that. And go ahead and tighten this down. Now we have to get in here and separate these. Now we have to get in here and separate these. You can see that they're kind of just free flowing setting in there. We want to separate them so we can put them back, slide our rotor back through here. We're going to ease this up in here with them separated. Once it goes onto the rotor, we can move it up into place. We can grab our bolt through our ABS sensor, back through the fork, and get that one started. Same thing on the rear. This bottom one's super tight. You really have to pay attention to this cable. This bolt has a washer kind of built onto it, and you don't want to pinch that cable. If you feel it get tight, pull the cable up and over the washer like that, and then it'll go a lot smoother. I'm gonna go ahead and run these in, being careful that we don't pinch the wire. Okay, top one. Front caliper bolts are going to be torqued to 28 to 38 foot-pounds. Very important to note when I'm talking about torque wrenches and setting your torque wrench and torquing your bolt. When you set that 28 to 38 foot-pounds, it's one click. I see a ton of YouTube videos that are out there that they will grab their torque wrench and they'll be like, all right, this is 30 foot-pounds, and they'll put it on here and they'll give her, oh, well, better make sure. Nope, you just, no, the first click, if your wrench is set correctly, when it clicks, don't give it another ugga-dugga. Keep it at one click. It's very important. Now your brake pad bolts up here are going to be inch pounds. It's going to be your smaller torque wrench. If you don't have these torque wrenches, I'll put a link to the description down at the bottom. If you're doing this at your home garage, you don't need to spend $300 on a torque wrench. Put a link, get the ones down on Amazon. These right here, they work great. I work in a garage and I use these and they work just fine. Brake pad bolts up here, they're kind of weird. They're 130.1 inch pounds to 173.5 inch pounds. Which is really kind of an oddball inch pound thing. Just get it in the middle. We'll set it at like 150 and we'll torque them down. One ugga-dugga. So the only thing we have left to do is put our zip ties back on. I'm gonna put one right down here at the bottom where I cut one off. Keeps everything taut. So from here, what we want to do is go over and pump the brakes again. Like I said, we spread those pistons apart. Now we have to push them back together. Now from here, what you're gonna go ahead and do is start your bike and test your brakes. You can roll the bike forward, squeeze your brakes, roll the bike back, hit your rear brake, make sure everything's working properly before you just jump on and take off down the road. So that's it. Like I said, very easy install, a couple of simple tools. Like I said, I'll put the link down in the description to a lot of these tools in case you don't have them. But look at all the money that you just saved, you just put in your pocket. Buy these tools one time, you'll always have them. But I'm gonna get out of here and get myself cleaned up. I hope to see you in the next video. But until then, as always, be safe, keep your knees in the breeze. Thanks for checking out the video. Don't forget to hit that like and that subscribe popping up over here. And don't forget to check out the rest of the channel because we have a ton of bagger related and Softail videos on our channel. And to get you started, maybe you can check out this one or this one. I'm not really gonna say anything else. You can just click one of those and take you over to another video.